What is soul? What is the relationship between the soul and God, the self? Where is the seat of the soul? Where does it gather in terms of your bodily location? How are the souls brought to life? These and some other important topics we will cover in today's meeting. And so soul, or the Atma, as known in Sanskrit, is immaterial essence or actuating cause of your life. Without your soul, this body wouldn't be able to live or function. The soul is eternal and indestructible in its essence because it is a spark. It is the emanated ray or emanated spark from the Supreme God, Sat Purush. As Rumi says, we are the stars wrapped in skin. The light you're seeking has always been within. The objects that do not have a soul are either lifeless objects or certain very primitive plants or minerals. But even certain other plants and minerals do have a soul as well. So a soul is God's eyes within you. It is God within you. A soul is a cell of God. And through each and every soul, God perceives unique lives, unique creations. It is vitally important to understand that the soul is part of God. It is emanation. It's not created as such. It is emanated, and it is an extension of God, multiplicity of God. And there comes a confusion that some ask, so how does it relate to the self or God? Some people even assume that a soul is the I or the ego self. That is not the case. The I or the ego is a misidentification. It's a wrong identity. It is not the soul. So we have to separate this idea, the ego self and the soul. The ego self is a wrong identity, misidentified. In one of the spiritual books, there was a funny explanation. There was an honorable king, and his son became mad, and he identified as a chicken. So he became like a chicken, and the king was very upset, didn't know what to do. So of course he is not a chicken, he's a human being. It's a wrong identity. And funnily enough, everybody in this world identifies as a separate entity wrapped up in skin. But you're not that. You are immortal soul, immortal being, and you're not separate from God because you're an extension of God, individual extension of God, but not separate. So how does the soul relate with the self? What is the difference? The self is other word for God. And essentially God or Supreme God, Sat Purush, is the source of all souls, is the source of all creation, all emanation. It is everything. Therefore, God has brought forward myriads of souls to not only make creation, but to manage creation and experience life in all possible combinations, all parts of Himself. So when the soul drops the mind, which is the wrong identification, I will explain you soon how the soul received the mind. But we're looking from a higher perspective now. So when the soul drops the mind or disidentifies from the mind, it realizes that it is God, it is the self. Because in the heart of the soul, or the essence of the soul, is God self. So there's no difference in reality between soul and God, because the soul is made of God. It is an extension of God. It is not separate from God. But when the soul enters creation, it starts to receive vehicles of consciousness. For example, the mind. And there are various differences of the mind. So there is a pure mind, which the soul receives when it enters Par Brahmanda. And this mind is an instrument that the soul utilizes within the creation of Par Brahmanda. And primarily Par Brahmanda is positive. There's no negative current. But when the soul enters Brahmanda, which is a universe of duality, it gets confused, it gets mixed up, it becomes veiled. And for the souls who have spent many yugas in the lower creation of duality, they have been veiled so much on top and on top and on top of on top, and everything was getting more and more confusing and twisting upside down because it's all duality and all paradoxes which seem to be making no sense, and ultimately coming to the earth, which is not only in the universe of duality but also double twisted reality. So nothing gets pretty confusing, and thus the ego sense arises. The ego sense is the mind, but the soul gathers that energy and then it, we may say, identifies with the mind. And then it asks the biggest question it can ask. So who am I? Who am I really? So to qualify for this question in the truest sense, the soul goes through 8,400,000 various life forms in this lower universe of Brahmanda until a soul qualifies for a human body and maturity to be able to look within and ask the question, who am I? So I congratulate all of you already achieving this stage. Long, long journey has been passed behind you. So the soul, through myriads of experiences, is ready now to go back on the ladder of ascension, to start going back home. It had enough of experiences. Now the soul is ready to go up, to start remembering God, its true home, what it truly is. But then there is a problem of karma. A lot of stuff has happened. Big heaviness weighing A lot of disbalances pending, a lot of backlog pending to be cleared. For some souls who are more mature, they can go much sharper into the question, into the inquiry of who am I, or remembering God through love, which is the bhakti path, and trying to remember, to realize, to reawaken, who am I really? This love in my heart has origin, it's home, it's the true home calling. The truest divine love in the heart that calls the soul back home. And through the spiritual path, the soul may finally realize, remember that I am God. This is my true home. This is who I truly am. It doesn't mean that the soul dissolves, as some people assume. It doesn't dissolve. It realizes who it truly is, God. And its unique expression of God. It is God. God shining through this form, through this being, through this soul. So the ego identity softens, dissolves until self-realization occurs. Karma is still a bit more complex matter. For the soul to be liberated, there is a more complicated process to clear the karma. And that is called a path of liberation. Normally, yogis assume that by realizing that I am the immortal self, God, that they assume that karma will drop away by itself. But according to our research of many, many spiritual teachers and gurus, that's not the case. The karma clearing is still a bigger job that needs to be done. Not only remembering that you are God in essence, that you are the self. So the relationship between the soul and the self, it is in reality the self, an extension of God. But when it goes into creation, it takes on various vehicles of consciousness, and in the world of duality, it may even forget who it truly is, its origin, because the mind is predominant and the soul is veiled. And this is a common experience for billions of human beings. They identify with the mind, not with the soul. So how are souls brought to life? Before any creation took place, before the lower universes, Brahmanda, before higher universes of Par-Brahmanda, Supreme God Satpurush has emanated the souls already. Those were the first souls. There were 16 original beings who were emanated, and then many other souls were emanated from Supreme God Satpurush. So these souls were emanated directly in the divine regions. These souls came into life within the divine, within Satpurush, completely at one, completely having no idea about any creation, any universes, none of that existed. So these were the very, very first souls that came into existence. Now, as creation took place, as the Par-Brahmanda, 700 quadrillions of Par-Brahmanda universes were created. Some souls who were emanated within the divine became very curious, and they said, oh, we want to go and check it out. The creation of those first universes that came into existence. So there were certain amount of souls that went in with complete consent, that they know that they will leave the divine and they will enter those universes and become subject to the laws of those universes. So they will have to experience certain cycles of experiences, the rules and regulations that govern that creation, and they fully agreed with that. As time went by, more souls, the creation was so vast, 700 quadrillion universes, so of course it needed more souls. Therefore, Par Brahm and the Maha Adi Parashakti, this is the only name that is relevant as a highest goddess of Parbrahmanda. We did a research upon it. So she was given from Sat Purush, from God Supreme, a gift, a seed of creation or emanation of the souls. The souls still come from Sat Purush, but she was given a gift to bring the souls directly into creation of Parbrahman. So these souls were not first coming into life in the divine, they came right away in the Parbrahmanda universes. Through this gift that Satpurush gave, he gave a seed of himself or itself, and thus it is this Supreme God, and she can simply use this gift and bring the souls into life. So now we have some souls who came into existence in the divine, and now it's a new situation. We have souls which came into existence to experience the first thing when they open their eyes, so to speak. It's just analogy. So the first thing they see is Parbrahmanda creation. As the process of creation took place, there is a greater story ever told about Lord Brahm or Kal Niranjan, how he created, together with Goddess Durga, our local universe, which is called Brahmanda universe. So this is the universe of duality. It is a small universe of the nature of duality. It has a negative current and a positive current. Again, the Goddess Durga or Adya, that was her first name that she received directly. So she also received the gift from Supreme God Satpurush to bring the souls into creation. And another interesting situation happened, that these souls were brought into the universe of duality, just like our universe, Brahmanda. So these are the three major ways, we may say, or parts where the souls come into existence, into life. For the souls that come into life in the universe of duality, there is a dilemma, there is a problem, because the universe of duality is the furthest creation from the true divine abode. So it's so different, so dual, with positive, negative currents. The mind is instantly given to the soul, and therefore there comes that sense of separation, that the soul knows that it must find its way to the true home. It must meet its true essence, which is God Supreme. But the problem is that the soul is living in a world of duality. It has been brought into the world of duality. Just like, let's say, a person who is born in some unfortunate country, let's say some warring zones, even though it's the same planet Earth, but these babies are born in very challenging environments. And the planet as a whole is a beautiful planet. There are so many beautiful things on this planet Earth. But these souls are born in very unfortunate places. Therefore, for them to realize the beauty of the planet is very, very difficult. And to come out of those countries of poverty and deprivation into the countries of beauty, paradise, and abundance is very difficult. It's a long journey. So the same way for the souls who are brought into existence in our local Brahmanda, there is a dilemma of a seeming separation, because where they are born, they're emanated, is a world of duality. So this is why for the soul who is brought into existence within the divine, there is no question of the ego. There is no question of separation. There is no question of duality. It doesn't even know what is duality. It doesn't even know what is the mind, or what is poverty, or what is a body, a physical body. The soul has no idea what is a physical body. So these problems do not exist for the soul within the divine. For the souls who are here now in this Brahmanda universe of duality, the concepts or the issues of duality are persistent. The vehicle of consciousness of a dual mind is a problem, and identity of the ego is a problem. Okay, so let's have a look at some questions. Let's say somebody reaches full consciousness, or there are spiritual teachers, or even ascended masters. This question asks, so how come they have identity? They do not have identity. They do not identify being a ascended master. They do not hold identification of the ego self. They fully know that they are God. So when a person reaches full consciousness deep within, or very clearly, they know that they are God, they're the self. There's no confusion about that. The more integrated and advanced the being is, the question of identifying with the body or with anything else, it just doesn't cross the mind, so to speak. It doesn't exist anymore. So this relates again to somebody who was saying, I don't like the concept of the soul because it implies that I'm separate. It's a wrong idea of the soul. It's a wrong conditional construct of what is the soul. It is you. It is who you are. And in the heart is God. When there is a true self-realization and all the karma is cleared, there is no question that I am the self, I am God. If a person has a problem with the idea of the self, with the idea of a soul, which is when you drop the body, you still have the soul. When you drop your astral body, emotional body, the mind, when you leave this universe, you still have a soul. When you are within the divine, you're still a unique expression as a soul, but you're not separate, zero separation. You know that you are God, but you express yourself as this unique being, as an instrument of God.